Hello guys, this is your Uncle Big Fish, and on this video we're going to be doing the most requested light build or holy build Guardian. Now for this one, I'll just say it outright that this is a very strong build that I think could have some very important uses for PvP. Mostly on PvP, less for PvE. So this is probably a lot more PvP oriented build, although I would say it does have some uses for PvE as well. However, I think majority of the use will be primarily on PvP. And the reason for that is because this build has a lot more inherent damage reduction, and also its ability to have pretty much near constant CC on the enemy. It's got a lot of CC frames, either stiffness or send flying or bind. It's got way too much of CC frames, and so this is actually built to actually immobilize people, disrupt, and tank damage. However, in terms of PvE, where monsters generally don't really cause a lot of CC, and most CCs can be deactivated with your passive or also your evasion, this build is primarily made for PvP. And I think that this build is way superior for PvP compared to the water build. However, for PvE stuff, this one is probably a lot worse due to the absence of the water shield, which is your primary way of actual reducing damage. So this is going to be the skill build, but first we'll talk about the light build skills and what it does compared to the water build. We've already had the water build video last time, so if you haven't seen the water build skills and you don't know what they do, you can check that video out and you can come back here afterwards. Or if you're just curious about light build, we can just get started now. So primarily this is going to be the skill set that you'll be using your skill points for cleric. You don't need this one just because this thing has an upgraded version later on the sage skill set, and they both can't be up at the same time, so you want a better version. Thus this one's redundant to even level up and waste skill points on. Next will be your ultimate. Now this one, on the holy build at least, it has pretty much the exact same effects as the water type. There is absolutely no difference whatsoever. The only difference is the water build scales primarily out of agi, whilst the holy build primarily goes from strength or power. I'll probably say strength a lot more often than power, because in terms of MMO stuff, it's mostly strength, agi, int. It's never power, agi, int. It sounds weird. Sorry about that, guys. I've played way too many MMORPG. It's ingrained in my brain that when I see this triagram, it's always strength, not power. Alright, so for this one, we will not be equipping the Holy Light Blade, because Holy Light Blade doesn't scale very good with the light build. It doesn't have any inherent uses. It only has some bits of damage, and honestly the damage is pretty damn very redundant to even consider using, just because it's actually not that good, and there are no skills in your arsenal that actually helps to reduce the cooldown or extend it, so it's not really worth using. And also the damage is very low, and the skill animation is way too long to use without any other bonuses. Like say for the water build, you get the water shield, but this one doesn't, so it's just damage and it's not worth using at all. Next, let's talk about the armor break. Now this is going to be the first skill that we're going to be using primarily. This is a very strong one, and I think it's worth mentioning that this one has a pretty long cooldown of 20 seconds. However, it does something that's, in my opinion, very strong, and that's the fact that instead of just getting a huge area of effect like the water type, it also inflicts bind on the enemy's hit, and binds last for 3.5 seconds. Out of two different testings, I sort of see that it does like around 3 seconds, and then another test does like 3 seconds. So there's 3 seconds and 3.5 seconds. I don't know which one is which, and I don't know which one is right, but it's probably one of those two. Honestly, it doesn't really matter. But I just want you to know that this bind is very powerful because it completely immobilizes movement. So this is very strong and worth mentioning about. Next, let's talk about the holy build for the Divine Cross. This is a build that water build does not use, so Yeah, it's very interesting. So what this does is, this increases the skill's area of effect. So now this thing has way more area than the other builds. In my opinion, this skill might have some like viability. However, I'm not using it due to a couple reasons, which we will talk about later. The second one that we're going to be talking about will be the Provoke. So the Provoke's version for the Holy build is actually like so. It dramatically increases defense, 30% damage reduction to physical and magical defense, and also it has the ability of Restrain. And what does this Restrain do? Enemies in this state deal 5% less damage to you, so it actually reduces enemies' damage by 5%. However, it's just to you, not to your opponents, and not to your teammates. So be sure to know that. They measured out less damage to you. Okay? This one, in my opinion, is pretty similar to the water build. There's really no difference whatsoever, except this one has Restrained, whilst the water build doesn't. So this one is just 100% better than the water one. In my opinion, there's like no difference. Just better. It's just better. In terms of the other skill builds, we'll be using Divine Punishment. This one is probably made solely for the Holy build, because the Holy build's version is way better than the other versions. The Holy build gives you flat 30% damage reduction. Now this is very powerful, very powerful. So on top of Provoke's 30% damage reduction, you get another 30% from the Holy build. So this one actually gives you 30% more damage reduction. So it's very powerful, making this 60%. Very powerful stuff, and it does stack with the Provoke one as well. So you have pretty much 60% damage reduction from just using these two skills. So this is actually very powerful, and as you can see, this one scales primarily from strength instead of agi. So just to say it outright, if you're going for the water build, you're going to be going for agi, because every skill you have will scale from agi. But if you're going for Holy build, you'll be going for strength, and 100% on strength. There's absolutely no other skill with the Holy build that uses agi. It's just strength. So if you're primarily a Sage, which also goes with Holy build, you just want to go for strength. It's just strength. That's it. Don't scale on anything else. It doesn't matter. Strength is your main scaling for your stats. Next will be the skill Shield Rush. Now this is a very interesting skill, in my opinion, because this skill is very good yet very bad. And the reason that I say that is, this skill have inherently super armor, so you can't get CC during this skill, and you also have damage reduction 5%. However, there is some problems that I see with this skill, and that is the fact that its tracking is very horrible. I've talked about this in a water build. They're exactly the same. The water build version and this one, there's absolutely no difference. The only difference that I think is worth mentioning is you do have higher skill damage if you're using the Holy build. This thing deals more damage, and also it gives you 5% damage reduction, whilst the water build instead gives you movement speed, and it reduces the cooldown of Holy Light Blade. So this one, in my opinion, is probably worse than the water one. However, there's some uses that this thing can potentially become a stab skill, so you can actually use this as a damage dealing skill, because it does have pretty good damage. And also, I think what's pretty good is it does give you 5% damage reduction, which means that you have 65% damage reduction in total from all that we talked about just now, which is extremely powerful just on its own right. Very strong. So you have like 65% damage reduction just from using these skills. It doesn't last very long, but it's pretty okay, I guess. From what I can see, this thing gives you damage reduction for the skill's duration, not really during after the skill. So you actually reduce damage while you're using the skill. So after the skill ends, it's gone. So primarily we can forget about the damage reduction, because it's very unlikely that it's going to matter. The skill itself only lasts for 1.5 seconds. Next one will be the Guardian, and will be the Guardian set that we're going to be using. Obviously, we're going to be using the usual set for the passives. We'll level those up, and also Guardian class mastery. So for this one, because you are still using Provoke, so you do deal 1% of your max HP as bonus damage, and also you get a permanent 10% damage reduction. So on top of the 30 from your Provoke and 30% on your Divine Punishment, you get another 10% from your Guardian Mastery. This is going to give you a flat 70% damage reduction just by using 2 skills, which is absolutely powerful. It makes you very tanky, makes you very difficult to take down, and I think there is a lot of viability in this skill set. Next, we're going to be talking about the Justice Crash. Now, if you see here, there's a reason why I don't use the skill, and that's the fact that this skill, at least for the Holy build, is very bad. And the reason why I say it's very bad is, although it has higher damage than the Water Element, it lasts very long. The cooldown, the animation of the skill is very, very long. The wind-up itself, just the wind-up, lasts for 1 second, guys. The wind-up lasts for 1 second, it drops down, and that's it. So, it does absolutely nothing for 1 second. For 1 whole second, it doesn't do anything. And this puts you in a very bad position because you want to deal damage, you want to have impact, and just for 1 second, every 30 seconds of you doing absolutely nothing is pretty damn bad because you are taking damage while you're jumping. And because of that, it's not very viable in my opinion. It does have pretty good damage. It does more damage than the water type, but it has that animation lock where it's just you jumping on the air doing absolutely nothing. And I don't think that it's justifiable to use it. However, if you do want to use it, I think that this thing could be used as a pretty good damage filler. However, as I said before, it does absolutely nothing for 1 second. However, if you want to use it, go for it. You can either use Justice Crash or you can use your Shield Rush. You can use any of them you want. If you want the Shield Rush, that's okay. If you want to do the Justice Crash, that's also okay. So this thing has a total of 20-second cooldown for Shield Rush and 30-second cooldown for Justice Crash. So if you put the maths right, you can cast 2 Justice Crash, you can cast 3 Shield Rushes. Aside from just simply dealing more damage, this one also dispels all existing status debuffs that you have. In this game, unfortunately, there's not really a lot of status debuffs, so that actually matter. There's not really a lot, so it's not that valuable. Like the worth is not that good because majority of debuffs are not that crippling aside from binds or stiffness, so it's not as good to use it. However, if you really want to use the skill, I think that this skill damage itself is very high, so it does give you that burst damage, which I think is pretty strong. However, in my opinion, from the skill build that I have here, you only need one thing, and that's mobility. We obviously can't remove Divine Punishment because that's part of the set of the damage reduction. We can't remove Provoke because that's what make you, well, the Guardian. I can't remove the Armor Break because Armor Break is just way too good. I can't remove the next skill because it's probably your main stab or your high damage skill, and also your damage filler. Very low cooldown, very strong. So the only other option is to either use Shield Rush or Justice Crash. For the next skill, this is probably one of your best skills in my opinion. One of your best skills for sure. So if you see here, Shield Break. Alright? Light elemental damage enhancement. Skill damage is increased and can inflict knockdown. So this thing does knock someone down, and you can use this very effectively by going for this first, and then you use your Justice Crash. So Justice Crash says send flying. What you can do is you can knock someone down. You use this, so you knock someone down with Shield Break, and then you use your Justice Crash. So the moment they fall down, you're gonna go up, and then you're going to go down again and slam them while they're still on the ground, and they're gonna be sent flying. So you can CC someone for a very long time, guys. For real, it's gonna last super long. And because most likely you're gonna be using your Armor Break first, and it's gonna bind them, so you can't really move, if that makes sense. They can't really move, so you can do somewhere around like 4.5 to 5 seconds of just pure CC. This can go all the way to 7 seconds if you want to min-max every single CC duration. So you can pretty much control someone for a very long time, and they just can't do anything. It's a very annoying and it's very broken in my opinion in terms of CC thingy. But yeah, I just want you guys to know that this is very strong. If you are going for the Justice Crash build, you can go for this one instead. You can say like go like this, that's fine. So this is actually a very strong set in my opinion, and I cannot justify using anything different. I obviously can't change Armor Break because Armor Break is just way too strong. It enhances your teammates' damage, your damage, and it enhances every other damage that you have here of your other skills, your ultimate, your provoke, and everything else. So this set is not really primarily made to be dealing damage, but this set is to enable your teammates and also to make yourself more of a control build than a tank. So if you want to be tanky, you want to actually like reduce damage, you want to absorb damage, then you're gonna go for the water build. But if you want to be just tanky and just be a control, you can go for the holy build. I think the holy build is way more viable for PvP, more so than the water build. But due to the lack of shield, it might make you unable to tank as much damage. That is what I think. Do I think that this is a very viable build? Yes, I think it's a very strong build, and I think you guys should try it out. This one, in my opinion, is going to be very powerful, especially in team fights, because you can jump in, you can send this one in, and it's going to give you super armor. And after you get super armor, you basically can just go for Justice Crash, and then you can spam your other skills. And this is just outright super powerful. You ideally want to stay very close to your opponent because you have this skill, which is a different punishment. This thing is like it summons a circle around you. I'll just let you see this. Give me a second. You cast this, and there will be those flying thingy around you, and it deals damage to whatever touches it. So if anything touches those, they get damaged. I'll show you what it does when I'm actually dealing damage. Give me a second. Right, so here I am. There's a desert elf over there. If I touch this guy, that's damage. Okay? I hope that this is pretty easy to understand. I think it's pretty easy to understand. That's basically what the skill does. And you have 30% damage reduction while you have this thing active, which is super powerful. Okay, so say that I'm gonna using Provoke first. This is gonna give me, if you see the shield icon under my battle power, you see the shield icon. Provoke gives you damage reduction, like so. And then when you use this as well, you gain also another damage reduction. Or just broken. So you're just very tanky and difficult to take down. And because their cooldown coincides, you can pretty much cast this almost off cooldown, which is super strong. So here's what you probably want to do a lot more often. You can first start off with Provoke. Then you're gonna use your Divine Punishment, and the Provoke should be off cooldown right before the Divine Punishment goes off cooldown. The Divine Punishment lasts for a very long time, so it's very strong. You will always have uptime of your damage reduction on either one or both. So this is actually going to make you extremely tanky, and I think this is worth mentioning. So aside from all this, what I can say is this Holy Build Guardian is very powerful. I think it is a very invaluable member for a PvP team, and I think it's very useful because of not just your inherent ability to control people, but your buffs are worth a lot. So you can actually go for a different set of buff skills if you want to. You can opt for getting the Defender stance, so you can actually put this and you'll pretty much become a pretty much perfect support, because the first skill, which will be the Power Blessing, is going to give everyone in your team, including yourself, a 30% damage amplification. 30%, guys. It's not a joke. 30% for 15 seconds. And your shield gives a 20% of the max HP of the player. Lasts for 10 seconds. So this makes your allies tanky, it makes you tanky, it makes them just hit harder because of the Power Blessing. So it makes your allies deals 30% more damage. close to maybe 50% because you have armor break as well. So armor break is going to amplify the damage taken by the enemies by 20%. And by adding power blessing on top of it, you're pretty much dealing 50% more damage to the opponent. This is very powerful. And it's going to be easy to set up because while you're using the armor break, the enemy is going to get binded by your skills. And so they can't move. And your enemy and your allies can just free hit them because they can't do anything about it. Ideally, there's a couple rotations that I want to show you guys. So the first one is going to be, you're going to use obviously your buff skill to amplify your damage. And you want to do things in this order. So first, you're going to be going with your Provoke, obviously. And after this is done, you want to actually use your Justice Crash. After you use your Justice Crash, you're going to be using your Divine Punishment. And then you're going to be using your Armor Break. And then you're going to be using your Shield Break. So it goes something like this. Alright, go like that. Then you're going to do that. Armor Break is going to bind them, knock them down. This will be just enough time. The Armor Break will be just at the right time of when they will actually stand up. So the enemy will just get CC'd for a very long period of time, which is very, very powerful. The only caveat is you do need to land your Justice Crash, and it's very difficult. It is also one of the reasons why I actually opted to have a different idea of using Shield Rush instead, because Justice Crash is just very, very difficult. It's very difficult, yeah? Because this thing has a very long wind up. You see there? For one whole second, it does absolutely nothing. That's why it's so difficult to use, guys. I hope you guys understand my point here. If you're using the Shield Rush instead, it's gonna look kind of like this, which I think is better. See? It's more controlled, if that makes sense. It's more controlled. So you have a pretty good opening into everything, which I like. All right. This is the reason why I opted for that in the first place. However, yeah, the CC frames become shorter, obviously, because it's safer. So you can't change your CC frames a lot. It's gonna be a lot shorter compared if you're using like the Justice Crash because of its Send Flying ability. But you guys understand the point. Like, this thing has a better and faster engage, which I like. It's got pretty decent mobility as well, so you can actually do that. This thing helps you to close distance very well. Let's look over the skills again. And this is pretty much the most optimal set for Guardian, in my opinion. You can go for either the Justice Crash, or you can go for the Shield Rush. So you have one mobility skill, and the rest of your abilities complement that the moment you arrive. You can either get close with Evasion, or you can get close with Justice Crash. Any is fine. I recommend using probably... If you can get a close in, and you can actually land an Armor Break, that's going to be better. Honestly, if you absolutely want to min-max this, you can go something that looks kind of like this. You can use Evasion, get close, and then you're going to use Armor Break, like so. And you're going to use your Divine Punishment, like so. And then you can use your Provoke, and then you're going to use your Shield Break. And then the moment they almost stand up, you're going to be using your Justice Crash and send them flying again. And when they land downwards, they'll still be binded by the Armor Break that you cast like 3 skills before. And you can just hit them. Just hit them, cast Provoke, hit them. There's nothing they can do about it because they can't move. And you're too tanky that you're probably not going to take that much damage. And this is pretty much a 6.5 second to 7 second of pure CC. They can't do anything about it. All they're gonna do is waste their time, panicking, unable to move. Unless they have purges or dispels, which means that they can actually let go of the CC. But unless any of that happens, they're just gonna get CC'd for 7 seconds and just completely lose their minds. So this is the Guardian set that is made if you want to torture your enemies, you want to give maximum emotional damage on your enemies. This is a perfect set for you if you're like just If you're just a very sinister person and you want to make people have a horrible time, you can play the set. I think it's very fun. I tried it before, but it's not it for me because I'm more of a team-oriented player. I don't really do a lot of PvP on this game because PvP on this game is kind of clunky for me, so I'm not really into it. I'm more of a PvE guy, which is kind of funny because in other MMORPG games, I tend to focus more on PvP. So yeah, if you guys like the set, please do let me know if there's some changes that you want me to do. You can just comment down below as well. If there's any more builds that you want me to do for other classes, I will do them after the class change mechanic is introduced. Because right now we can't change classes, and starting from zero again is going to take way too much time. And then I have to learn the class all over again, which is going to be a pain in the ass. So yeah, probably we're going to do a live stream later on. I have some data and some documents that have pretty much every single class sets, and we could go through that alone later on. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and that's it from me, and have a nice day.